business, and so matter first up on the agenda proper is the Midtown program update. So I think we've got a Jenny and David, sorry, and Murray. Here he comes. So welcome. You've all seen the report, so I will hand it over.
Kia ora koutou, thank you, Chair. So the council group has been working together to deliver the Midtown program for a number of years, and collectively the projects that we're delivering will deliver capacity for future growth, improve accessibility, as well as delivering a welcoming and attractive street environment around the new City Rail Link station. So the project that we have underway are the Wellesley Street Bus Improvement Project, the Midtown Wastewater Upgrade, and the Te Hanoa Victoria Street project. Over the last few years, we've worked together to sequence the projects to minimise disruption and rework, and also to ensure that the area is free from significant construction once the City Rail Link opens. So this slide is showing construction progress over the next 2 years or so. Most of the construction that you currently see on Albert Street, Wellesley Street and Queen Street will wind up by early next year. And from 2026 onwards, the last section of Victoria Street between Queen Street and High Street will get completed. And the further wastewater upgrade will take place along Muriel Drive. Pass over to David now to talk a little bit more about that.
Good morning, everyone. Morning, Chair. My name's David White. I'm the Acting Chief Programme Delivery Officer for Watercare. Came into the role a month ago, but I've been with Watercare for 6 years working on the Central Interceptor programme. So the Queen Street project is a challenging piece of work. The meeting today is quite timely. We're actually launching the TBM from the shaft up at Mayoral Drive, and it's primarily to create additional capacity in the network to promote future development within the catchments. Which one? Oopsie. So the work is split into 3 phases. There's the main work going down Queen Street, and that's the 3 shafts which we're currently on site. There's an additional leg along Mayoral Drive, which picks up some engineered overflow points at Vincent Street, and then there's the additional work at Package C. In coordination with Jenny and Auckland Transport, the work around Package B will take place later because we need to provide clear access for the new busway along Vincent Street. So while we reprioritise that work, we'll then move over to Package C, so we can provide additional capacity in the Package C catchment while we come back in 18 months or 2 years' time to finish the work in the Vincent Street area. Now we'll see if technology works. Do I press play or does someone else press play?
Usually takes a couple of seconds. It's not yet.
We're trying.
So whether this goes or not, we've got the same media crew that we used on Central Interceptor to help promote and engage, with our stakeholders, and we found this very effective with our engagement process. Otherwise, we move on.
Keep filling the gap.
Okay.
Padding, I think they call it.
Keep padding. One thing that I didn't touch on was We did have an element of work to do a section of relining to the Aoraki main sewer. We looked at this as a sort of opportunistic piece of work, given the collapse that we had in Parnell. When we've investigated this more, it's really not practical to reline the sewer there as we had planned. The time to do it, if relining is the preferred option, is actually to do it after the northern section of Central Interceptor is commissioned, because that way we'd actually take a lot of flow out of the Aoraki main sewer, and that would make working in live sewer conditions, you know, a lot safer, and therefore, you know, less risky for everyone from a project outcome. And actually, the concept about it was an opportunistic piece of work, really the whole Aoraki main sewer we need to look at in terms of what is the long-term plan there. So we're actually going back from a planning perspective, and we may end up having to replace the whole of the Aoraki main sewer rather than just sort of repair individual sections, which is not really providing capacity for future growth anyway.
We'll keep working on it, and we might come back to it as the
Okay.
the last little thing, so just keep going.
Yep. Well, I would say if anyone would like to come and visit the tunnel site, which is obviously very close to here, the tunnel boring machine will be working as of today, and we're happily to facilitate any visit.
So we know that the construction has been hugely disruptive to business in the area, and we're working closely with Auckland Transport and Watercare to deliver a range of initiatives that we are to support. So we have a independent business connector that's actively working with around 130 ground floor businesses in Midtown, providing specialist support and micro grants. We're also working to make sure that the street environment feels safe and vibrant while the construction is happening. So some of the things that you will see, examples are the Matariki lights on Queen Street and Elliott Streets currently, as well as new street arts and lighting around Airedale and Wakefield Street. We also worked with Ngāti Whātua Ōrākei and the artist to develop artwork for the Watercare hoarding, telling the story of Te Waihoratu. The city centre target rate is supporting more shows and programming in the Aotea Arts Quarter. So, for example, the Auckland Live Winter Cabaret Festival, which is helping to drive visitation and spend for the area. And looking ahead, we'll be working with the businesses and supporting them to make the most out of those new spaces as they come online. So, for example, outdoor dining.
Kia ora, Murray Burt, Director of Infrastructure and Place at Auckland Transport. I think the key point in this slide, in this presentation, is to show that there's a very joined up and collaborative approach between Watercare, Auckland Council and Auckland Transport with the works in the city centre. And one of the key things from an Auckland Transport perspective is to make sure that the buses and other traffic can continue to move through the city, particularly around the opening of CRL. So we've been in a very close liaison with Watercare and the sequencing of their works to ensure particularly the Vincent Street, Albert Street corridor will remain open at the time of CRL opening and afterwards. So you're just reinforcing that streets are for movement, and we're working a lot with other utilities, including Watercare and Vector and so on, to reinforce that message that during peak periods, roads need to be open for movement and to minimise disruptive works where possible in peak. So thank you.
So currently we're standing at Merrill Drive. Behind me you can see our Merrill Drive launch site for our tunnel boring machine, and today we're excavating our shaft and we're getting that down to 14 metres depth. So we're building this shaft here so that we can place our tunnel boring machine at the base of the shaft. From the base of the shaft, we'll then be excavating our tunnel all the way through to Victoria Street. So it's a very complex job here in Queen Street. As you can imagine, being the oldest or one of the oldest streets in New Zealand, we have a lot of infrastructure in the ground. So we're having to navigate through that, and that takes a lot of time and planning to make sure that we don't interrupt other people's services as we're doing our work.
Thank you. Questions on this project? Desley.
Well, first, thank you, because I think it's an important project for Auckland. I suppose the key issue around my question is the impact, right, from a transport perspective and from a user perspective. Are we monitoring what's going on to help people keep moving through and around the construction sites? Because, I mean, the poor old city centre has been one building site for a long time. So I'm not disputing the project, and I think everybody understands what you're trying to do. That's really good. But how are we monitoring every single day that we are doing the very best we can to get buses, pedestrians, vehicles, etc., moving through and around the construction sites?
Kia ora, Councillor, Deputy Mayor. So I can talk to the street level monitoring, and maybe I'll pass to Murray to talk to the transport movement. So on a daily basis, we have staff members whose job it is to actually be on the street all of the time. And part of that work is looking at access issues, safety issues, cleaning and maintenance issue, and as well as engaging with people on the street and businesses to make sure that we are basically that people can move through safely. So that is monitored on a daily basis.
Safety, I'm talking about movement of both pedestrians, public transport, vehicles, etc.
Yeah, so there's always trade-offs in these situations where large-scale utility upgrades are happening and building capacity in the networks to enable future growth. So there will always be a trade-off. From a Auckland Transport perspective, what we're being strong on is for utility organisations such as Watercare to minimise their footprint on the road reserve, and where possible to work outside of peak hours in arterials. What Watercare has presented here are long-term sites that will be established where tunnel boring machines are entering the ground and so on. So they're not going to be able to move out of peak, but they can minimise the size and scale of their footprint. And we're also looking at the sequencing of the work so that when City Rail Link opens, that new infrastructure will function as it should, and that the bus and rail connections will be able to happen smoothly down that Vincent Street, Albert Street corridor. And similar to what Jenny said, for each individual site, there are traffic controllers and pedestrian monitors working with people to guide them in and around those sites. But it's very much a joined-up approach. It's not just Auckland Transport that can manage this, it's also the utility companies that are opening up these sites and how they manage the traffic around it. So it's very much a joined-up approach, and it's something we need to be responsive and flexible because things change, and it's not just a one-size-fits-all. But it's about responding to issues as they arise and being flexible to be able to adjust traffic light sequencing, to be able to make adjustments to the system so that where we do start to see traffic building up, we can reduce that impact on the users of the network.
Thank you. Supplementary. So that's my actual point. My question directly was, are you monitoring this daily? Because traffic flow is different, and I get the minimise the footprint, and I get all that. But actually, the biggest concern for people in the central city that I'm hearing is the ability for pedestrians, public transport, vehicles, everything to actually get around all these websites. And what I want be able to go back to the people that I'm talking about is saying that Auckland Transport monitors this daily and will alter the light sequencing or whatever to ensure that traffic and pedestrian flows impacts are as minimal as possible. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes, absolutely. We've got real-time monitoring of the entire system, and we're looking at this constantly 24/7 and making adjustments where we can to improve the flow.
Thank you. Richard?
Thank you. I guess this is great work, needed work. The water care project itself, because we hear a lot of times about, we just shouldn't be doing this. How old are the current pipes, and what would we do? What would happen in that Midtown area when we're trying to get a bunch of development? This is for later. Sorry. What would we do if this work wasn't done? Because it's a $115 million project. It's clearly not needed.
It is needed, that's correct. The Araki main sewer is over 100 years old. So that's another piece of work in terms of the long-term viability of that asset. And that's, a lot of Watercare's main assets are, old and in need of rehabilitation. So the work is needed. In terms of providing additional capacity, we know Auckland's a growing city. We've got to provide for development, and this is a key piece of infrastructure for future development to enable the growth within Auckland.
And would we be getting, if we weren't doing this, lots of mini projects dealing with the breaks and the wastewater spewing into the streets, etc.?
Potentially, and you'd be dealing with more wet weather overflow events in the event of a storm, so there'd be more pollution into the harbour. So it's the benefits are multifaceted around, outcomes for developers, but also providing better environmental solution during wet weather events.
Okay, and I think it's about $5 to $6 billion worth of private investment coming around this Midtown area and the station. Most of that couldn't happen without this additional capacity, as far as I...
Correct. So we're providing additional capacity for the future development within these catchments.
Thank you. On the Vincent Street, so Andy and I have met with both Watercare and AT on this, and I met again with AT recently. So that's great to hear that it sounds like the WX1 and the Westie buses will be able to enter that new Vincent Street upgrade. But could I just have a bit more information on that? You're essentially going to put the portal in a better place that we can have two-way buses forever, or is it just going to be delayed disruption? Like, it's such a wide road corridor there, have we figured out a way to keep the bus traffic moving in each way?
Yes, I mean, in conjunction with Auckland Transport and Council, so the work in the Vincent Street area, which is actually where we're collecting, where we're intercepting the existing network, we'll only do that work after the bus lane's been fully established and in operation, say for around 18 months or so, and then we'll have to come back and do that work in the Vincent Street junction. There is an opportunity to potentially do some work along Mayoral Drive and not go as far as Vincent Street, but actually there's really no benefit to doing that. In fact, we'd be mobilising twice, so we'd be incurring additional cost for really no benefit, because the benefit is only when we make the connections at the Vincent Street junction. So if we don't do the Vincent Street connections, now, and we defer that until 18 months later for the benefit of the bus route, the plan is to do the work towards the other end of Wellesley Street, and that way we can provide for development in another area.
Okay, but just to clarify, you will always provide for the two-way buses. It's not going to be stop-go buses anytime in the future. Like,
So at the point of the conversation we're having with Watercare, I think we've reached agreement that the works in the Vincent Street Merrill Drive junction will be deferred until a point after transport is stabilised after CRL opening. So that's a deferral. The exact size of the footprint that they'll occupy within the intersection is still being discussed and debated. And the Auckland Transport position always is to minimise the footprint as far as possible. But in all these situations, there's trade-offs, and Watercare is saying to us that to make these connections, there is a requirement to occupy a fair proportion of that junction. So we'll have to work through this as we understand more the technical challenges Watercare is facing. But the commitment always is to maximise as far as possible the movement through the intersection. But I can't give you a direct answer at this point, as Watercare is still working through the details.
okay, cool. I'm sure it'd be cool if Andy and I could meet again on that sometime soon. Very last question, sorry, Chair. On the Wellesley bus, Jenny, you know, obviously some of that hasn't been dug up for the 80 years as well. So I hear that some of the issues have been the private infrastructure we didn't know was underneath some of that roading. But the purpose of the Wellesley bus, busway, bus improvements are quite significant. We're talking tens of thousands of passengers coming through there a day. Could you just give us a little update on where that's tracking and the purpose of it? Because people might just think it's a random road upgrade.
Yeah. To be honest, I'm not as familiar with the bus network as Stacey is. I don't know whether you want to wait until the Auckland Transport update and defer that question for Stacey, or bring her forward now. I'll leave that up to
That's
Andy.
all good.
Cool, thank you. And just before we move on, I should have done before, a little bit naughty. I just want to welcome out the back, we have some graduates from the Policy, Planning and Governance Directorate who are joining us today to observe the cut and thrust of council meetings. So welcome, and I hope you're enjoying this and will take great memories. And so I'm not sure whether he's cutting or thrusting, but next question, Mayor Brown.
Oh, this should cure the young people of any hope to carry on. That's
not very positive.
I had questions about traffic flow and about demand management of capacity, both of which are quite different. But I'm like to see the idea here under item 8 that we are keeping the city moving. And I'd like to congratulate Barry from following up and knocking off all those number of pedestrian crossings in the middle every 100 metres down Queen Street. If we were monitoring so closely, how come it was me that noticed that the timing hadn't been changed for the last 3 years since it was shorter across? And how come it came down to me to notice that people cross everywhere but the crossing? And so that they're completely unnecessary. And so I just wondered how good the monitoring was, because it shouldn't be my job. And then coming back to if you are monitoring, because I happen to walk up and down Queen Street, there's a nice gap outside Farmers at the end of the work that Watercare are doing, which have got a nice fence around it, and a gap of 1.2 metres and another little plastic fence there. And you're not allowed to walk through there, and yet people are walking through there because it looks like it's a good place to walk through there, even if it says you shouldn't do it. So we either create places which are clearly not to walk through, or we shouldn't encourage people to do gaps between and then say, no, you're not allowed to do that, because they will do that. People will make their mind up. So perhaps you can go, I would ask you to go back and have another quick look at that. And then the Watercare guy, when you're saying, the whole point of what you're doing, and I thoroughly support what you're doing, which is really to separate sewage from stormwater. And there was a tragic error in judgment 100 years ago not to do that, but they did that. Once you've separated those two, and we're not only carrying sewage, which is what what we're trying to do, I understand, then I would have thought the 1.2 metres would have quite a lot of capacity for sewerage, and we're talking about the growth of Auckland. Demand management is something I've been trying to bring into play with Auckland Transport and with you people as well. If you've got a certain limit and you've got rid of the stormwater, then can we then start encouraging people to have demand management within their new facilities? I mean, you can have lower flow sewage systems and lower flow showers. There's a whole lot you can do to reduce demand. And there's plenty of evidence outside the city about how that goes, because we know that city people, because water's cheap and readily available, use at least 2 or 3 times as much as people in the rural areas who have roof collection. And the people in the rural areas are not unclean, and they do go to the toilet in the same numbers, but they manage themselves. So are you anticipating some form of demand management rather than having to rip the streets up and do another 1.2 million because the people can't control themselves properly?
Excuse me?
Just pop your microphone on, David.
I can't answer that, Mayor Brown, right now, but we'll have to get back to you after I've spoken to my planning team as to what the plans are around demand management. I mean, I think like the Deputy Mayor said, I mean, people will control and limit and minimise how much water they're prepared to use in the event of, the communications around, running out of water or water running low. I mean, actually, that should just be a business as usual approach. I mean, it should just be good practice to minimise the amount of water we're using.
Well, that's good. And then have a look at Queen Street and see, can people walk around those areas in front of farmers? Or if they don't want them to, don't have 2 fences there. Thanks.
Yeah, we'll go and have a look at that straight away.
Thank you. Morris.
Yeah, I'm not going to comment at all about the need for it. It's clearly needed and the work has to be done. My questions are more about how long it's taking for projects just about anywhere in New Zealand, and Auckland's one of the worst examples. And it seems to me there's always this dichotomy or the dilemma between the engineering companies who are going to go and do the work and those of us who are supposed to be representing the public and minimise the disruption. And they're always going to tell you, 3 years, 4 years maybe, and it's going to be this much and so on, because that's going to be in their interest to have that. We want it to be 6 months at the most because it's in our interest for the public to have least disruption. Do you have really good metrics with regards to these size type projects elsewhere in the world? Because I have lived a lot of places and I've seen them come into places in the States where they'll go into a particular suburb, rip up the roads, put piping in, reseal the thing, put an overhead motorway, and 3 weeks later move out. And the public in my patch just keep saying, I'm just giving up going to the city. I'm not going anymore, forget it. And I don't know, just like COVID meant you don't get a lot of people back to a public transport, I think you're not going to get some of these people back because of how long it's taken. So I'll repeat the question. Do you have a really good set of metrics when you're negotiating to do these of what a real project like this should take elsewhere in the world, and then hold their feet to the fire to make sure the time of delivery is in line with that and not just an ever-extending, long-winded cones to Africa? Ever since I've been on the council, the whole place has been cones around the town.
Well, thank you for the question. I can talk to some of the water care projects. Is when the contracts are awarded, we check the program durations very closely, and we do compare with other projects. It's not always a relevant comparison to compare with what happens in other parts of the world, but absolutely, it's in terms of tunneling rates, meters per day. What you can do is, we compare with rates around the world. Work in congested city centres like this is very hard. There's a lot of stakeholders, there's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of risk. But it's really in nobody's benefit, whether it's the utility company or the engineering firm or the constructor, for anything to take longer than it absolutely needs to. I'd say what the best way of minimising work is to, have work 24/7. If we could work 24/7 everywhere, then you can minimise work. That's just not always possible. I've spent a fair bit of my time working in the Middle East, and things happen very, very quickly in the Middle East. But there's almost zero consultation. You can just go and dig up any street if you've got a letter from, the supplier saying, yes, off you go. We've got certain processes that we have to follow, but as I say, it's in nobody's benefit to drag out any construction duration whatsoever. So everyone's working really hard to minimise impacts.
You just said that it's not in the interest of the big construction companies and all of that to have it for longer. But surely it is at the time of procurement and bidding. Surely it's in their interest to put a bigger time frame and a lot more cost and expense on it. And the only way you can get back to where a realistic point should be on that contract is by comparators and say, well, that's just nonsense. You're only doing a 1.2 kilometre long tunnel and it's only this wide and it's going through this sort of soil quality. And here's 3 examples on a per kilometre base from elsewhere where they did it in a quarter that time. So it is in their interest at the beginning to try to inflate the time frame. And I'm just worried that they are winning the time frame debate, and on behalf of the public, we're losing it.
Just noting that. Okay, Mike.
Yes, I've got a few comments, but I'll leave those till later. In terms of this report, there is no mention that I can see, even if you like translating the euphemisms in the official talk, of the planned extension of the so-called AVO, Authorised Vehicle Only, in Queen Street. If you will note that an AVO, so-called, was imposed on Queen Street between Wakefield and Wellesley Street round about the time of the last election, which for elected people, present, future, is actually a kind of a dangerous time, really, when lots of things can happen before people are really aware of it. Anyway, this AVO was imposed back then. I understand a major change will be taking place. The authorised vehicle only will be imposed from Merrill Drive down to Victoria Street. My question is this still going ahead? Because I can't see any mention of it, and it would be a major intervention or a blockade of Queen Street. So that's the first question. Do you still intend to go ahead as part of your mid-city planning? Midtown program update. How's that going with the Midtown program update, the blockade of Queen Street?
Maybe I'll just preface this by saying my understanding of this presentation is the focus is on the water care works and the impact that those are having in the city centre, not on the transport arrangements. But what I can also say is that the things that are happening in city centre are all part of the city centre master plan, which is a plan that was authorised and approved by Auckland Council. So in terms of what Auckland Transport does, it's a delivery agency on behalf of Auckland Council in that regard. So any changes to the master plan would have to be channeled through Auckland Council. So I'll hand to Jenny maybe to cover that.
And look, and I'll just jump in. That is the purpose. Paragraph 1 outlines what the purpose of this report is, and it was we asked for it to focus on the disruption that is occurring in Queen Street, and it's not the, I guess, the picking apart of the sort of city centre master plan. So we're here, but I'll let Jenny answer the question as best she can.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure that I can actually give you a definitive answer at this stage, so I don't have the detailed information associated with that, but I suggest that we can come back to you on those responses.
I find that really surprising, but we'll leave that to one stage. In terms of disruption, the mini AVO, the pilot, the tester, which was slipped through in around about this time in 2022, has penalised about 100,000 Aucklanders and levied about $20 million in fines on Aucklanders already. So one can imagine what the consequence of radically extending it will be. So I think that, given the importance of this matter, this should have at least been mentioned. It is Midtown, and it's going to cut the heart out of Midtown, actually. So my next question is in regard to High Street. In terms of the consultation, extensive, as claimed, I was asked if I could obtain the raw data of what actually shopkeepers and landlords said, what were their views. And so I requested that data, and much to my surprise, they said, yes, we can get it to you. And what I of course received was the processed data, not the original raw data at all. So I was, given we're talking about High Street here, I would make that request formally to the deputation here again. And one final issue that I want to raise with you, at some stage during the work in Victoria Street East, the second lane in Kitchener Street, which now funnels through traffic from Merrill Drive from Queen Street because of this AVO blockade, and of course from the motorway, has been effectively reduced to one lane instead of two, because at some stage someone authorised the blocking off of the second lane by extending the platform of the footpath right across the first lane. This has resulted in significant congestion at all times, not just at peak times, and it was not authorised, it wasn't consulted on. Again, this is a real concern. The residents have asked me in that area for that second lane to be unblocked. Maybe Mr. Burt can help me here. I would imagine that AT led this intervention, and I wonder if there are any plans to return Kitchener Street to what it was.
Perhaps, Councillor, if I just address that, as we've discussed, you and I have discussed, this is something I'm working on with Auckland Transport at the moment, so I'm not in a position to come back with an answer on Kitchener Street, but it's definitely work in progress. So I'm keen to come back to you as quick as I can on that.
Thank you, Mr. Potter. I thought I would try and cut out the middleman, but I hear what you say. Thank you.
Thank you. Shane.
Yeah, thank you. My question's actually following on from Councillor Williamson's. Can I just clarify what your working hours are that you're allowed to operate on site, and whether those are adequate and efficient to get the job done as quickly and affordably as possible?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what the hours are out on site, but we're certainly not working 24/7. So everything's always a balance in terms of as efficiently and as quickly as possible, but we're working all the hours that we can to get done as quickly as possible.
100%, thank you. Look, I might ask AT the same question, so heads up on that one. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Shane. Julie, online.
Kia ora. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, my question was following on about the disruption and the community conversation about that aspect. So something, obviously, a couple of projects in my ward where we had a lot of disruption, and AT has learnt from that for the next round, the Carrington Road upgrade, and now the third of the 3 rounds of public consultation. The first 2 were refining the design, and the final one is actually focused on how do we best manage the construction period and testing the community's, the residents' appetite for night works, for closing off things rather than having one ways and at various points and things like that. So I'm wondering how we can take that kind of approach with this kind of situation where we've got multiple agencies involved, and also acknowledging that it's in the city centre, and so you've got quite a different cohort of people that you would be talking to. Obviously residents who are probably not going to be that happy about night work, but the hospitality impacts of night work play out differently as well than they would say in the suburbs. So what's sort of the thinking there about obviously this project is 4 projects, they're well underway and stuff, but for the learning from this, for the future of these sort of joined up projects in the city centre, which I think we would all support more of, how are we going to do that conversation with the community that are impacted by works better, so that we can test the appetite around that, night works, closing things so we can do the works faster, that kind of stuff. That's what I'm really interested in here. Thanks, Chair.
Kia ora, thank you for the question. So what we have heard from the community in terms of construction disruption is that first and foremost, they wanted that transparency around the level of disruption and the duration so that they can themselves make the best decision for them. Probably it's, as David has already sort of alluded, some of there is definitely trade-offs in the way that we approach it. So if we work 24/7, it means we compromise the quality of life for residents as well as those nighttime economies. And at times, delivering it faster means it's more disruptive. So we'll be looking at sort of bigger road closure and stuff. So there's definitely a trade-off associated with it. What we are sort of attempting to do, and you'll see that come through with the High Street public consultation, is that when we present the design to the community to consult on, we're also presenting the construction phasing and methodology so they can look at the outcome as well as make an assessment on what they see is the disruption and being transparent about that so they can test their appetite and provide feedback on that basis. But we have heard... Yeah, but we have heard very clearly that they want good information ahead of the construction happening so they can make those decisions for themselves.
Yeah, I think that timeframes and certainty around timeframes piece is really key. One of the businesses that was impacted by a project in my area chose to take some of that time to refurbish. And so they were able to, a shutdown that they would ordinarily have to do, they timetabled it to be when they knew that they were going to be disrupted. So there are other, so I think it's really key that we get that time frame stuff right, because that's also when we drive up frustration for people. It's like, oh, it feels like it's been going on forever. Oh, it's not finished yet. So clear and honest communication about that. Good to see that you're identifying that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. No more questions, so we'll ask you to step back. So thank you very much for the presentation and the information. So we'll now throw it open. Well, does someone like to move? Thank you, Chris, and Desley seconding. Okay, debate. Any comments? I've had a few already. None? Okay, we'll put it. Those in favour say aye.
Oh, sorry, I thought Mike's finished.
I asked. Have you got a comment, Mike? You've had a few.
I think you've got my message. Mr. Chairman and members and ladies and gentlemen, what we are doing in the central city is actually harming the central city. The intention may be well meant, but actually we should remember the surgeon's adage, at first do no harm. But our interventions, costly, inefficient, non-productive, dragging out for years, are actually doing a great deal of harm to the central city. I'll leave it at that, especially to Midtown. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris?
I wasn't going to speak, but look, I have a totally contrary view that what we're doing in the city centre faces the future for the people of Auckland. If you look at Wellesley, if you look at Victoria Street, where the projects are, if you look at the CRL, if you look at the contract we undertook to dispose of the Bledisloe building, the overstation development there, the list goes on. This is all future-facing investment for our people for generations to come. It's a remarkable coordination that's happening in the city centre at the moment. And I get frustrated, but I don't dwell on the frustration. I go and solve the frustration, as I have with Auckland Transport and the CRL team over the years. If I see contractors' vehicles outside of the staging area, I lodge the complaint. It's actioned upon. Generally, it's actioned upon. I don't wait to have the carte blanche complaint here that what we're doing in the city centre is not working. This is future-facing. When we're all gone and disappeared from here and forgotten, people will reflect on the total rebuild of Wellesley Street, the total rebuild. If you look at the superstructure there at Wellesley Street, I don't think it has been rebuilt since the day it was built in not the 20th century, the 19th century. It's remarkable. There are little niggles along the way. Some get really big, but look at the project. Let's applaud that and all those that actually said, this is our future. It is not status quo. It's not treading water. It's not thinking about my boomer generation. My boomer generation got it good. This is for the generations that follow.
Dystopia.
Shane?
Hey, thanks, Chair. Look, I wasn't going to speak either, but Councillor Darby's words I thought were really wise, and I agree completely with everything that's said. And look, we should be celebrating fixing some problems that have lay there for many, many years. This pipe's over 100 years old, and we're fixing it. When I first ran for council, I had a couple of mates of mine take me aside and say, look, you're aware of some of the huge issues that you're going to face in the coming terms with crumbling pipes and the huge price tag attached, the huge disruption attached. Well, I'm glad we're facing those problems down and we're actually fixing them, and I think we should be celebrating it. I just wanted to talk about the comments around you wouldn't believe how quickly some other countries do this job, right? And I thought that really resonated with me a lot, because time is also money. So it's not just a disruption thing. When delays happen in projects, that costs money, and it can cost millions, millions, millions of dollars more, right? Nobody likes disruption. I get that. But I'm coming to a view that people don't thank you when you're there for many, many more months than you would have been if you maybe just got in there and smashed it out. If you looked at things like 24/7 work, with workers' rights guaranteed, of course. But if you get in there and pay businesses to say, look, maybe you close for a couple of months and we'll pay you your profit that you were going to get. We're going to get in there and smash it out and we're going to fix this pipe. Then we're going to go away. That actually might be a better solution than trying to sort of do both things at the same time, which is minimize disruption and build a massive pipe. And do things. These things happen all across the city. It's not just this one thing. But, we're all going to have really different views on where to draw that balance, because it is a balance. But I just want to maybe think that we should be updating our thinking on this. And maybe into the next term, we should have a look at this policy, look about whether we've got the balance actually right, or whether we can get things done quicker and cheaper. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Shane. Richard?
Thanks, Andy and Alexi. Do you want to put those images up, the first one? I just want to show some pictures for those who don't necessarily know the before and afters. The first one is coming. Okay, I'll speak while I'm waiting for the visuals. You know, a lot of the reason there's a lot of work going on in the city centre and around the city is for decades we didn't do it. For decades, people underinvested in our city's infrastructure. The somewhat invisible stuff like pipes, this pipe that is being built along here to replace 100-year-old infrastructure is 13 metres below the surface, being tunnelled. I'm not an engineer, but it doesn't sound like that is a very easy thing to do, but it is happening to stop sewage seeping out into our waterways and onto our streets like we see in some other cities, but also enable the growth that we keep saying. You know, I hear the city centre is dead. I hear all these negative things constantly about the city centre, but there's $5 to $6 billion worth of private investment in the midtown area. So that's not even counting all the stuff in the waterfront, Wynyard Quarter and other areas. That's midtown, around the stations, around the convention centre. There is Precinct and the Chow Brothers and others who are building and investing significantly around this area, but they cannot open anything without wastewater capacity, and this will enable that as well. This picture up here, and I'm putting two up today, this is some of the most popular stuff that I put on my social media. Obviously, I have a different social media to some, but this is the before and after of Te Hanoa. That is what Victoria Street used to look like a couple of years ago, and this is Te Hanoa, the first stage now. It is significantly different, significantly better, and this will lead up to the station in time. There are people sitting there now eating their lunch. There are people enjoying that space. Obviously, great to have more trees in the city centre. I want to scroll up to the Quay Street example. I remember the debate on Quay Street, and Councillor Darby will remember it well too. There was so much opposition to Quay Street at the time. People voted against it, people were grumpy, people were angry. What we had to do there, the reason why there were 16 trenches in the middle of Quay Street in the first place, was because they had to replace the 100-year-old seawall on the front. The front of the city was falling off, basically. So we had to dig the whole thing up. So we all thought, why not put it back better than it was? There's now 200 mature native trees. There's 50 gardens in there, including 21 rain gardens. There is Commercial Bay, which has worked with the council on this precinct. Amazing places. If you go down there any time of the day, there are people eating, drinking, shopping, enjoying themselves. I get on my bus down there. If we told people today we want to reverse it back to that 5-lane road where basically no one ever existed apart from those big trucks, they would laugh at us now. So I know many of you have been around for a long time, and there's great stories about Britomart and great stories about Wynyard, but that's where all the investment is going. What will happen to Midtown once this is done? The exact same thing will happen. The issue is, it is really disruptive and really tough on residents and businesses. But if we don't do it, it's even worse. We will get a city that dies on its own and also has plenty of mini disasters all over the place that are not controlled. And as Councillor Darby said, I ring up the team if I see an issue. Some days they'll do it within hours. Someone will ring me and say there's a trip hazard, or the visibility dots are not in the right place for people with low vision. Within hours, I'll get an email and say, oh, it's been fixed, it's been sorted, sorry, the team were getting onto that this evening, and it gets done. I think more of us, eyes on the ground, actually getting outcomes instead of bagging everyone in the city, bagging the city centre to drive people out of here. When people come in, they actually go, oh, it's actually not as bad as I hear all the time, or it's great in this area, or whatever. So I think, I bang on about it all the time, we are a victim of our own complaining, and I think the success of the city is where we've helped upgrade and work with the private sector too, and this will continue, and it has to continue because literally the infrastructure is falling apart. So we can put it back ugly or we can put it back great, and I think we're doing the latter. So thanks.
Thank you. Ken?
This is a huge subject, and I only put my hand up to counter my good friend to my right here. So I won't bore everyone, but I get really annoyed with the amount of time we spend on the CBD in this place. There's a huge area of Auckland, and there's a lot of people at Lynn Mall, and a lot of people at Westgate, and a lot of people out there shopping all over the show, which aren't in here shopping, is my observation. And I would just make a comment on, and I want to represent everybody, but those people don't get a big enough voice at this table. They don't take up a big enough period of our debates.
And the other thing I'd like to point out is that, yes, I think we can do our construction better. We have to do it better. We have to do it cheaper. But when I first came into this seat, I went and saw the ferry people down at the ferry terminal there, Fuller's, and said, oh, you're getting electric ferries? And they said, yep. I said, you got enough power? Well, we were going to bring the power down Queen Street, but we forgot. And so now we need to either dig it up again or work out a better way of getting the power in to here, hence why we've got a whole bunch of batteries going in. We can do it better, and we can be more people-friendly as we do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Sort of ironic. Wayne.
Sure. I won't speak anywhere near as long as some of the other speakers, Mr. Chair, but I just want to back Mike Lee. Absolutely. We're here in a governance role, an oversight role akin to a board. It is entirely appropriate for us to question projects, for us to seek contestable advice, and in an instance where a particular project has grossly exceeded any of the forecasts, and that project and associated projects have caused the closure of retail stores, the loss of jobs, and it could go on, you would expect that we would and should have that role. I would suggest it would be highly useful for this council to inform itself around the costs associated with the matters that I've just said. The loss of retail trade, the loss of jobs, the loss of activity, the multiplier effect of that, against the background where this council has spent a vast amount of money on the city centre. So I think the issues that Mr. Lee raises are entirely appropriate because that is our role. Thank you.
Thank you. Just reminding that the thing was on the Midtown Wastewater Diversion Project, but...
I understand that.
Yep. Lottie.
Kia ora, thank you, Chair, and I wasn't going to speak either, but I just wanted to add my voice to tautoko what my colleague on the left, Councillor Darby, was saying, and in particular picking up on us facing the future, and that is the role of our council, is to face the future and make those difficult decisions. Yes, we should always ask questions. Yes, we should always push for things to be more efficient. But we've got to remember that when work needs to be done, has to be done, then we should get on and do it. I'm really mindful as well of other cities that have neglected to do important work like this. We've heard from our staff, some of those pipes are 100 years old. I mean, look at other cities like Wellington and how they're suffering now, because in the past, they probably sat around as well, worried about the disturbance and disruption to their residents if they did that work and say delayed it and pushed it down the track, and now look at the issues that they're having. So I commend our team, I commend our governing body and past governing bodies for making those good decisions to do that future-facing work. I also wanted to pick up on that point about other parts of the world doing things faster. I've lived in Asia, as you know, and they do things right quick, especially in China, where they can often put up a whole airport fully functioning in half the time that any Western democracy might want to do. But that is because of very specific things about countries like that, where they don't have to consult, where they don't have to go out for an EOI or a tender process, and where it is fully funded by their local and central government. So I don't think that that's a fair comparison as well. Our team's doing a great job. This governing body is doing a good job. We should always ask for more efficiency, of course, and Councillor Lee has some good points as well, but also we should support our team and get on and do the work that we need to do for our future. Kia ora. Thank you.
Thank you, Lottie. No further comments, so I just have one word in regards to the subject of this report, and that is Wellington. So it has been moved and seconded. Those in favour say aye, and against, carried. Thank you. Next item up is Auckland Transport up.